Gates. I'm the Welsh Labour candidate in Clwyd South. I'm certainly feeling that health on the doorstep is a number one priority as well. What we've done in recent years as the Welsh Labour Government is increase investment in health. So we're now spending approximately £172 more per person in Wales than is being spent in England. Now, the crucial thing is that we don't separate health and social services out in the way that's happened across the border, because one impacts on the other. So we've made sure that there's a greater integration of the two. In addition, we knew when Betsy started getting into trouble that we had to take action, so we did. We intervened and took it over. Now, what's really important is that we don't let up on that intervention, that we continue to offer Betsy Cadwaladr the support that's needed to improve services. As far as GP surgeries are concerned, I regularly meet with GPs. Some of my best friends are also GPs. We need to make sure that we use all health professionals' skills to the best of their ability. So making sure that pharmacists, for example, are able to support the work of GPs, making sure that people access services at the appropriate level. We've got the Choose Well initiative, which has been rolled out. I think in the coming years it's going to be incredibly important that we make sure that more and more people are aware of when they should access GPs services and when they should go to pharmacists or other health professionals. I think we need to ensure that the bargain is correct as well between people as patients and the NHS. We all love the NHS. I think it's one of the greatest creations of the last 100 years. But there is a requirement to ensure that the NHS isn't just a service to treat sickness, but also to ensure our continued and enhanced well-being. And so in our party's manifesto, we have pledged to introduce something called a Wales Wellbeing Bond, which will lever in more money for preventative services to improve people's health and well-being, and to also intervene earlier when people are showing signs of illness. So, for example, it's going to be linked to a social prescription. So if you show signs of developing diabetes or mental illness, the problem will be highlighted earlier, and you'll get an intervention which could be in the form of physical activity or cultural activity to try to alleviate and prevent the condition or the illness from getting worse. So what we're essentially doing is delivering on the vision that the post-45 Labour government had of the NHS as a national wellbeing service, not just sickness service. We're going to complete what they began. Well, we're incredibly proud that as a Welsh Labour government we retained EMA, that we have helped students avoid the best part £22,000 of debt that their peers across the border have incurred during the same period. Moving forward, it's essential that we develop a package of support that is based on sound evidence, and we commissioned Professor Diamond to carry out a review back in 2013. He will report later this year, and on the basis of his findings, we'll develop a package of support for students that is better. We've guaranteed that is better than exists across the border. Now, it's not just about the support that you give in terms of tuition fees, it's also about maintenance support, and we're very pleased that we've pledged to maintain EMA in Wales. For many young people, EMA is the crucial factor that keeps them in education and training, so it's essential we maintain that. Now, some of the other parties have developed policies or presented policies that I think have been rushed, and they're now pretty much falling apart. One policy that the Conservatives have promised is to withdraw support on tuition and instead to channel money towards maintenance, but actually towards landlords to pay the costs of accommodation. Now, I don't think it's right to do that without taking on some of the unfair costs incurred with additional charges. Many students will change properties 3 or 4 times during their course, their university studies, and many will incur thousands of pounds of costs because of additional charges. That needs to be dealt with. Another party, Plaid Cymru, have said that they will essentially return part of the tuition fees if you choose to come back to Wales or stay in Wales after you've completed university to work. Now, the problem with that is that Here today we're in Wrexham, but if you chose to live in Wrexham and work in Chester, presumably you wouldn't have any support returned to you. If you lived in Chester but worked in Wrexham, you'd have a return of some of your tuition fees. So these policies that have emerged too quickly, rushed, based on very little evidence, I think, are in tatters. What we need to do is make sure that there is a really good evidence base to base a package of support that will be better than exists across the border. I'm very pleased with the performance of many of the secondary schools in my constituency. I think they're acknowledged as being some of the best in Wales. We know that we are now ahead of England in 12 A-level subjects. We've seen since 2011 GCSE results improve by 8%. My concern, when I was Deputy Minister for Skills, my concern was in ensuring that the qualifications and the skills that people develop are fully aligned with the economy in the surrounding area. So we've also developed programs to ensure that young people get the right work experience. I prefer to call it work exposure. And we're going to take this a great step forward. We're going to redesign career support and work experience. We're going to develop business clubs within schools. We're going to develop business hubs in towns and cities where there are further and higher education institutions, so that you develop a seamless pathway through education into the world of work, but also get to experience, and if you wish, set up business as well earlier in life. I think it's essential that we give young people the skills to be successful for an entire career, not just to get them to the end point of formal education. So people who choose, whether you've got what it takes, all I can do is present my experience and my vision. I mean, I was never meant to be here, to be honest, as a politician. I'm from a steelworking family. 8 members of my family worked at Shotton Steel in the last century, in the latter part of the last century. There was a devastating loss of jobs in 1980 there. 8,500 people lost their jobs. And it stands as the biggest loss of employment at any one site in any one day, even today, right across Europe. I'm from a background where it was expected we'd go to school and then acquire an apprenticeship. I was very fortunate in that I took up A-levels, went to university, but I was never expected to get into politics. My family, whilst interested in politics, were never political activists. But the reason that I got here is because I experienced what it was like in the 1980s in that environment where there was huge unemployment, where you had a government under Mrs. Thatcher that was telling anyone who was out of work, who had lost their job for no fault of their own, to get on a bike. And I've always believed that you shouldn't have to leave your community in order to move up in the world. And I've always believed as well that where a person, especially where young people want to go in life, where they aspire to go, should not be predicated on where they've come from or any disadvantage that they've grown up with. So that's been my driving passion. Now, I could have gone into a different job, and indeed I started out in journalism, but it's only through really being in government, through having the levers of power to be able to make the necessary change, that you can actually deal with some of the passionate beliefs that you have, and to implement the sort of change that will give everybody a better opportunity. So all I can do is just present to people why I want to be there trying to change society for the better, and then it's for other people to decide whether I've got those skills and abilities. I think the issues that have been raised in Clwyd South is probably similar to those that have been raised here in Wrexham, comparing notes with my colleagues elsewhere as well, in Flintshire and in Denbighshire and Conwy and further afield. Concerns over health, I think, dominate this discussion, and we've got a very clear choice now in this election between security of the NHS, in my view, under Welsh Labour, continuing investment in the NHS, not just having an NHS that treats sickness, but also that promotes well-being and gets us all healthier. Or we've got an alternative choice, which would be fundamental reorganisation, dismantlement and reorganisation under Plaid. We'd have under the Conservatives, again, massive reorganisation, but both those parties have significant black holes in their spending. The Tories have £1 billion black hole, which is the equivalent of shutting a district general hospital such as Wrexham Myler. And on the other side, Leanne Wood has said that she'd be content to see 10% efficiency savings made in the NHS. Now, I'm not sure many people in the NHS would be able to identify immediately a 10% efficiency saving without making cuts. So the decision on May the 5th is quite simple. Do we want to have a secure NHS under Welsh Labour, or do we want chaos and turmoil under the others? I think defence is one. I think it's essential that we operate. I'm an internationalist. I'm a firm believer that we solve global problems best when we cooperate with and work with our partners, not just in Europe, but around the world. So I'd resist any attempt to have defence broken up in the UK. I've got family in the armed forces as well, and I don't think it would be in the interests of the armed forces themselves to be broken up. Well, at the moment, we've made a pledge that we will offer a tax cut for all small businesses. We're able to do that with a guarantee that it will be applicable to the whole of Wales. But we've also said that we'll look at devolving powers from Cardiff Bay once we have stronger and larger local authorities. We'll discuss what powers would be best devolved to local authorities, but for the time being, I think having that assurance for every single business, no matter where you are in Wales, you will benefit from that tax cut, I think is essential. Right, well, we're going to bring together three primary employability programmes, those being Jobs Growth Wales, traineeships, and also apprenticeships. We're going to make sure that there is an all-age offer. I think what the business sector has said to us in recent years is that Jobs Growth Wales has been an amazing success. Apprenticeships in Wales, our completion rates are far ahead of England. I think they're about 85% now, and in England it's about 72%. And our traineeships are proving incredibly successful as well. The one thing that businesses have said in recent years is that if we could bring them all together into a coherent package of all-age support, it would really assist them in taking on people who need additional experience and skills to gain a meaningful career for life. So what we're going to do is develop one employability scheme that can be applicable to anyone at any stage in life. I don't know some of the candidates, so it's kind of a tricky question. I don't think any of the other candidates support Everton Football Club. But actually, I think it's probably my background. I'm from this area. I've experienced what a lot of people in this area have experienced, particularly growing up in the 1980s. I didn't want to move out of this area. The reason that I never went to London or to Manchester or Birmingham or any of the other big urban centres is because I didn't want to move away from where my family and friends are. This is where my roots are. I don't want to leave it. It's actually one of the reasons I left journalism, because I'd reached a certain point in my career in journalism where I'd either need to leave frontline reporting, which I didn't want to do, or I'd need to leave the area to get a better job, and I didn't want to do that either. So for me, it then became a choice. Do I stay in journalism, or do I do what I'd kind of always wanted to do, which was to get to the coalface and start improving people's lives through politics? So I think probably the biggest difference is that I'm from the area, for the area, and I've experienced what other people have experienced. My life has been saved by the NHS. I've been to a comprehensive school in this area. I know what it's like to grow up in a time of severe difficulty, financial difficulty. I mean, the 1980s were not so difficult to now. So I feel that I stand shoulder to shoulder with people in Clwyd South. I don't think we'll need one. I know that you said that you can avoid it. Well, none of the other parties can avoid answering that question because none of the other parties could form a majority. We've governed for the past 5 years with 30 seats. I fully hope and I am fighting for at least 30 seats again. So I think for Welsh Labour, we are in a position where we can say to the electorate, look, if you vote for us, you've got our manifesto, you give us a mandate, we'll deliver on that. We won't have to do what happened in the past with the Tories and the Lib Dems, where they had to compromise, and what people voted for was not what eventually emerged. Vote Welsh Labour, give us a majority. We're the only party that can get that majority. We give you the assurance that we will deliver on our manifesto, and we've got a proven track record because we've delivered on 96% of our pledges in the programme for government over the last 5 years. Well, with Splash, what happened? I mean, this was an incredibly difficult issue because what we had at the time was, and we still have it, cuts coming down from Westminster that are impacting on all non-statutory services. The difference in Wales is that we've better supported local government as a Welsh Government than has been supported in England. My argument at the time was that there was no need to close Splash. Splash could be turned around in the way that leisure services in Denbighshire were turned around. It was not my belief that that was a leisure centre that was doomed to failure, that was doomed to closure. My argument that it should remain open and in the control of the local authority was clearly not one that won the day. So what I did then was say to the local authority, don't close it and bulldozer it down. There is another opportunity here for it to be managed as a trust, a community trust. Now, there were decisions taken which some decisions were the right ones, which was to offer financial support, to offer the community an opportunity to form a group that could take over management of the leisure centre. And as part of that, and I'm proud of what the community has done, it's been one of the most impressive achievements that I've seen any community in Clwyd South deliver in the past 5 years and indeed beyond. But it requires more support. And I've been saying throughout the past 18 months that Splash needs more support from the local authority. Welsh Government has supported it through Jobs Growth Wales, through approximately £30,000 of wage bills through Jobs Growth Wales. We're looking at supporting it at the moment with a grant through the Community Facilities Programme. But what we need is the local authority to actually share some of the wealth that they've also had from Welsh Government. Welsh Government has committed a £1 million interest-free loan for Wrexham to upgrade leisure services. Now, it's time that Wrexham started to look at some of those services in the south of the county borough, in Clwyd South. Wrexham can't just focus on what's happening in Guildhall or indeed at Waterworld. It must look beyond that to all of the communities right across Clwyd South. I've got a really good group of colleagues in the Welsh Labour group at Guildhall who are pushing day in, day out for a greater degree of support, not just for Splash Magic, who desperately need it and deserve it, but for other non-statutory services across Clwyd South. But it goes back to this. Do we want to go to a situation that we've seen develop in England, where local authorities are starved of revenue, that have their budgets cut, that are prevented from raising council tax rates? Or do we want to empower local government, give local government the right resources to be able to support local services? Welsh Labour has decided that we need to support local government. The Tories in England decided that local government needed to be decimated. Now, my argument is moving forward that we need to ensure that local authorities are strong, local authorities are large enough to be able to be sustainable. That's a big offer for local government, but crucially, it's a big offer for the people that local government serve. Well, we've evolved in power. We've changed in power, not just superficially in terms of some of the branding of Labour to become Welsh Labour, becoming more distinctive, but we have changed in power itself. If you look at the course of devolution, you'll see how Welsh Labour in tandem, I think, with the National Assembly for Wales, has grown more confident. And we have evolved our policies as well, made them more distinctly Welsh. We have responded to communities, I think, in a way that reflects an evolving nature of devolution. We're now in a post-devolution age as well. So we've evolved our policies and our delivery to ensure that we best represent the hopes and aspirations of people. And we are constantly introducing new and innovative ideas. No other party is going to the ballot box or to the electorate on May the 5th offering the sort of policies that we are concerning apprenticeships, 100,000 new apprenticeships, or offering the creation of a North East Wales metro linking us with the northwest of England, or offering to more than double the capital limit that people can keep when they go into residential care. Nobody's offering the same sort of deal on education, an extra £100 million to drive up quality and standards still further. But also, we're offering some game-changing policies that will be of great benefit to people's well-being. So looking at tackling loneliness and isolation in our communities, looking at addressing behaviour and well-being emotional well-being within all education settings. The creation of things such as a challenge fund to be able to ensure that community arts and sports organisations flourish, and a Wales Wellbeing Bond to make sure that the NHS becomes a national wellbeing service, I think are absolutely crucial for the people of Clwyd South and Wales.